Hello and welcome to Hindsighting, where we discuss all the movies to win the Best Picture Oscar and try to figure out if this picture truly is the best, or is time rendered a different verdict. I'm Edward Clow. My guest today is a filming location enthusiast and creator of the Reel to Reel Filming Locations blog, Brian Koppel. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Today we're hindsighting the Best Picture of 2002, Chicago. From 13 nominations, it also won Oscars for Best Supporting Actress, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Editing, and Best Sound. It was nominated against Gangs of New York, The Hours, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and The Pianist. So Brian, at the end of the 2000s, it occurred to me that the 2000s was the worst decade for movies. Now, at the time I said ever, I got to modify it slightly and just say of my lifetime, of what I lived through. Just looking back at the 2000s, it definitely was not as good as the 90s for me. And it felt like at the stroke of Y2K, movies just got a lot worse. And I think there are a couple reasons for this. One of the reasons, and this is, as I've said before, political but not partisan, I think is 9/11. I think 9/11 kind of hits the water supply in 2003, which is not the year we're covering. Mm-hmm. And I think we really see a death of independent movies. It's interesting that the movie we're covering today is by Miramax, and we're going to get back to them in a second. So what is your take on that? Do you think I'm nuts for thinking about the 2000s? What is your opinion about that?
No, I'm in agreement, and especially for the second half of the decade, I can't even think of some of the Best Picture winners from the second half. I feel like we were getting into like Lord of the Rings territory was winning, and just stuff I wasn't interested in, and I definitely felt that I wasn't going to the movies as often as I was even in the early parts of the decade, definitely the 90s. So I don't think you're crazy at all. I think you're right on the money there.
What's interesting is that the year we're talking about today, 2002, actually was a pretty strong year. I don't know that that's reflected in these Oscar nominees. We'll get to that later on in the show. But I wanted to just call out, at least right now, 3 movies that, two of which have below the line nominations, one of which doesn't have any, that came out this year that I thought were really strong, which was Unfaithful, About a Boy, and Catch Me If You Can. Now, About a Boy and Catch Me If You Can had, like I said, below the line nominations. About a Boy screenplay's nominated, Catch Me If You Can's nominated for supporting actor. I think the score, maybe one other thing, maybe production design. That's off the top of my head. So 2002 is stronger than 2001 and then 2003. Mm-hmm. But if I were to think about the best movies of the 90s, I mean, I could go 30, 50 and not get to below a 5-star review. Mm-hmm. And probably the same for you.
Yeah, I can name them off easily.
Yeah. Let's move on to Chicago then. So first, some stats. This is the last Best Picture winner to date to not win for either writing or directing. And before that, it was only 2 years. It was Gladiator. But before Gladiator, it was 51 years. All the King's Men in 1949. When a Best Picture winner did not win directing or writing. And it has not happened since 2002.
I didn't realize that.
So 22 years. I wonder if this is the kind of thing that may never happen again with so many more Best Picture nominees. Yeah. We're still in the era of 5 nominees, and
where it should be. I don't think we should.
Yeah, well, actually, let's talk about that. What do you? I'm glad you took it there. Let's break into the stats for a second.
I had no problem with 5. I thought that was a reasonable number, and now it's just up to 10, or I don't even know if there's a limit.
It's limited at 10. It's sometimes 8 or 9, but 10 is the cap.
I think it should be kept at 5. I think it's a good number, and otherwise it just gets too out of hand for me.
Yeah, I think somebody said it makes the basket bigger. Like if you're playing basketball, it's like, oh, let's make the hoop bigger. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there are very few years where you can say there are 10 great movies. Mm-hmm. It used to be 10 in the early days until like their 40s. They went from 10 to 5. And the reason, you probably even remember this, the reason they went from 5 to 10 is because in 2008, they did not nominate The Dark Knight. And this movie, The Reader, that Harvey Weinstein pushed really hard, made it instead. And then the very next year, they expanded it to 10. Mm-hmm. And, it was sort of a crazy overreaction for that. Like, just nominate The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
It was probably the best reviewed movie. Even if you don't think it's the best movie of that year, it was probably the best reviewed movie of 2008, and a lot more people might have watched that telecast.
Right.
And it was actually a good movie too. So yeah, I don't think for the most part that this more than 5 nominees thing has worked out. I think in a few cases they've nominated things that might not have made the cut at 5, but I'm glad you brought that up. Chicago is one of 10 American musicals to win Best Picture, the others being The Broadway Melody, The Great Ziegfeld, Going My Way, An American in Paris, Gigi, West Side Story, My Fair Lady, The Sound of Music, and Oliver. So musical has not won in 22 years, which is crazy to think about.
And Oliver was that the late 60s?
68.
60s? Okay.
Yeah. So so it's 34 years between Oliver and Chicago. And that's a huge, because when I first was looking up Oscar stats, it was always a musical. It was always a musical. Yeah. And I've seen some of these, and some of these, I'm going to see all of them. So here's a fun stat. The 3 of the 5 Best Picture nominees were distributed by Miramax, and Lord of the Rings was executive produced by Harvey Weinstein himself. This is really what Bill Simmons would call Apex Mountain for Miramax. I mean, Miramax is all through the 90s is a strong Oscar contender, with good movies like Pulp Fiction being sort of the, probably the best of all of those, but The Piano and The Crying Game. And every year Miramax has a Best Picture nominee and a few winners. Shakespeare in Love wins infamously, English Patient wins. But this is crazy to have one studio have 3 of the 5, and then the studio head have his name on a 4th. So I thought that was just, and I remember when this happened, when the nominations came out, I was just like, oh, Jesus. And if there had been 10 nominees, he probably would have had more movies in there.
Exactly.
At 1 hour and 53 minutes, it's number 20 in ascending length. Number 21, if you count Sunrise, which we'll litigate if that even counts in another episode. Fittingly, just behind our last film, A Beautiful Mind, this is number 15 on the box office list of Best Pictures with a worldwide gross of $306 million. So, that's a question.
It wasn't number 1. It was either number 2 or 3, or it peaked at number 3 at the box office. Unless
Oh, you just never hit number 1?
That was my understanding, is that it was never number 1 at the box office. 3 was the highest position it ever went to, but it made the amount of money that it did, not reaching 1 or 2. You might have to fact check that one, but I did.
I believe it. I feel like that was a possibility back then, where you could have a movie just solidly do business, and they probably opened it. I know they opened it, on a few screens to qualify for the Oscars, which obviously worked. Let me ask you this though, and this is the first time I've asked this question, but I think I'm going to ask this question about the 9 other musicals. Did you know the show? Did you know the music? Did you know anything about it?
I saw Chicago on Broadway, I think 2 years before, or maybe 3 years before. I remember not really caring for it.
Who was in it? Do you remember? Was it Bebe Neuwirth?
Actually, she might have been in it.
Because she was played Velma, I believe, and I
think she was in it, actually.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of Broadway shows. I tend to prefer plays over musicals, but after seeing the movie, I said, oh, this has some actually good songs. Like, usually the show tunes I find them forgettable or whatever, but looking back, I should probably go see it again. Actually, I was at the Hollywood show last weekend, and Mira Sorvino was there, and she is going to be in Chicago starting next week.
Oh, who's she playing?
She's playing Roxy, I believe.
Oh, interesting. That's cool.
Although I don't think she's still going to be in it by the time I get home for the holidays. So, but yeah, I felt like I should go see it again because I really enjoyed the movie. I just remember at the time not really caring for the musical.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know. I'd heard of it. I had never seen it. I didn't know the music. I'm kind of like you. I'm not a big musical guy. Like, I like, the first time I went to Broadway when I was 10, I saw Phantom of the Opera.
That was my first one too.
Yeah, and I love Phantom of the Opera. I've seen it 2 or 3. I've seen it. I saw it in New York. I saw it in Fort Lauderdale. I saw it here in LA, maybe 15 years ago. Not, So that to me is like, I love Phantom of the Opera. I saw the Book of Mormon and things like that. But yeah, I'm not a big musical guy, which I I don't think that's going to color this conversation because there are some musicals I really like. I really do like West Side Story, both versions.
I do too.
And so I think that, well, maybe I'll have you on that when we do that episode. I'll see you in 1961.
Okay. Sound of Music.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah. There's some that, I don't, I saw it late, meaning I didn't see when I was a kid, but my wife showed me Singing in the Rain, and I really like that one a lot.
I just watched that for the first time like a week ago.
Yeah, what'd you think?
I didn't
love it.
I wanted to.
It's okay.
I wanted to. But yeah, I thought to myself like I've never seen. I mean, I've seen the the famous.
Yeah, everyone's seen Singing in the Rain.
But and actually, I think when you wait online for the Great Movie Ride, I think they showed a couple of clips of that back in the day at Disney's Hollywood Studios.
I'm sure they did. And
I said, oh, you know what? I should watch it. And I think it was on Tubi or something. So I watched it and I was just like, I don't even think I finished it. But I felt kind of guilty for not like.
So you're not a musical guy.
No,
really.
I was thinking my musical section in my DVD collection is Chicago, West Side Story, Sound of Music, Grease, and Xanadu.
That's
a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, well, the Xanadu, I mean, Xanadu is a lot of people's guilty pleasure. Xanadu has a very growing reputation. I don't think it's such a guilty pleasure. I think I'm sure if they showed Xanadu at the Academy Museum, and I think they probably have or will, it would be sold out.
Yeah. So, well, actually, at the Hollywood Show, there were a couple of people with.
Explain what the Hollywood Show is to people, because they may not know.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the Hollywood Show is a convention that's put on 3 or 4 times a year. A bunch of actors from movies, TV shows from yesteryear all show up that you can talk to at their tables, get signatures, photographs. Mm. So I have a friend that comes from out of town to go, and I usually meet up with him and walk around. And they get some. Richard Dreyfuss was there last weekend.
Was he really?
He was. And Barbara Eden she had a huge line.
Wow.
So they get some people, they try and get reunions of cast members from TV shows. A couple of Too Close for Comfort were there.
Okay.
But there were a couple of people wearing Xanadu jackets, and my friend went up to them, and apparently they just had a big, because it was a
45th, yeah.
And they did some sort of event, and it was kind of like a test run. They said they're going to do a big thing for the 50th. So yeah, Xanadu kind of, you're right. It's not so much a guilty pleasure, I guess, anymore.
Yeah, so let's get into Chicago. I had not seen this movie in 22 years. I don't even think I've seen it on television or anything. So this is the third episode in a row where I've had this experience because when I watched Gladiator and A Beautiful Mind, I had not seen either one of those pretty much since they had come out. I think I'd seen Gladiator on video. Beautiful Mind I had not seen. So I remembered Chicago, but like moment to moment, a lot of it was very fresh, which was interesting. I was seeing it for the first time, but I still knew like the story and I knew what was going to happen. So first thing I wrote down is that the opening of this thing is really frantic.
Yeah.
It's really a lot. Did you find that too?
The whole movie, I know it won Best Editing, but I almost needed a Dramamine because it was just back and forth so much. But yeah, frantic is good word for it.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the editing, and we'll get into that, because yes, this did win, as I mentioned at the top of the show, it did win the Academy Award for Best Editing, and they're doing a lot of cross-cutting in the beginning of this, which is, and they do that all through the movie, and it's effective in some parts of the movie, and other parts of the movie it's too much, but the beginning of this, it definitely felt like, I guess the comparison's fair because it came out just the year before. Reminded me a little bit of the beginning of Moulin Rouge. The beginning of Moulin Rouge is just so frantic and so in your face. And I think that's what some people like about that. But yeah, I found it just a little bit like, whoa. Like it definitely felt like the studio, and I'll just belay this on Harvey Weinstein's feed because he's in jail and can't come after me. But it definitely felt like this studio mandate of like, we got to suck them in. We got to build this world. And which I always think is so stupid in a movie where you've already bought your ticket and you're not just, how often do you walk out of a movie 2 minutes in and demand your money back? Like that just really doesn't happen anymore. Right. I mean, even if that were to happen now, they would just give you a free ticket for something else, maybe. And, so that thinking, it kind of got off on a shaky foot. I did like, which I didn't remember, the reversal they do after the guy's murdered, where we meet the John C. Reilly character, and he's saying he killed the guy. Mm-hmm. I didn't remember that. I knew he was sort of this like cucked husband, but I didn't remember that like the opening of that was like him saying, "Oh, that's when I shot him." I thought that was a nice little. I was like, "Oh, nice." Mm-hmm. Like I felt like the movie a little bit settled down, and I felt like, at least in that moment, and I felt like it was sort of, I was able to sort of like just get into this world. Mm-hmm. One thing, well, not one thing, this is something that just kind of kept slapping me in the face. So and maybe this is how it is in the show. I'm glad I have somebody here who's seen the show. All the dialogue, or at least the style of the dialogue, it felt very parodic. Like they were like trying to not make fun of it, but they were doing like this 1920s banter. And it reminded me a little bit of like a Bugsy Malone. Remember that movie? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, so people don't know, Bugsy Malone's this movie from, I think, the early 80s, where like Scott Baio and a really young Jodie Foster. It's a bunch of kids and they're all playing adults. And this is not that, obviously, but there's something about this just felt very sweaty. And is that how the show is? Do you remember? Not the songs, just the people talking. You don't remember.
I kind of don't remember.
It's okay. Well, it doesn't really matter because
I imagine it, because it takes place in the 20s. I imagine it was along the same kind of lines.
Maybe this kind of thing plays better on stage, mm-hmm. and that's a thought I had a lot watching this movie. So that's
the thing about, I just remember that there was like not really much in the way of sets. Like it was kind of one set the whole time.
In the show.
On the show on Broadway, mm-hmm. Which I think kind of made me a little bored.
Well, they probably opened this up because, I mean, when you put a play or a musical, on screen, you can go to more locations. Yeah. And I think that's why they cross-cut so much in here, because they're trying to put us in two places at once. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good instinct. But yeah, I think the first thing that jumped out at me as sort of a positive is, I don't know if this is the name of the song, but is the song called "He Had It Coming"?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, I didn't look at the name of the song. I thought that was the best sort of number of this whole thing. I really thought that was well staged, and I remembered it. That's the one song that I remember from this show. Uh-huh. Meaning, I heard it a couple months ago. I heard it like referred to, and I was, oh, that's from Chicago. And I could not, if you put a gun to my head, tell you the name of any other Chicago song. Not because they're bad necessarily, just because I'm not that familiar with it. Uh-huh. Again, I haven't seen this movie in 22 years, and I've never seen the show. But what I was wondering, I thought that was really well staged. I thought it was a really great number. I think that's, to be candid, my favorite part of this whole movie. But I wondered, okay, this is great, but is this just the show? Like, is the movie doing anything that they didn't do on stage, and does it have to? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's sort of the question I had, is like, that's a great song and it's really well staged, but okay, I'm sure if I saw this on Broadway, whether in the 70s or when you saw it,
yeah,
would it be any different?
Yeah. It is. I think the showstopper number, I think it's probably most people's favorite. I would say favorite, not mine, but it's close.
Yeah. What was your favorite song?
I like the, They Both Reach for the Gun, like the puppet.
That's you know what? That's number 2 for me also. That is a great, and that was the one thing I remembered mm-hmm. from seeing it back in 2003. Yeah. I really thought that was very well staged.
Yeah.
And I thought that was sort of, I thought that was, I really love Renee Zellweger's performance mm-hmm. in that piece, that's
I didn't
another.
Mind the intercutting between like the press conference and everything in that scene either. So, Yeah, that one's my favorite.
Yeah, it's interesting because like the editing sometimes in this is really sort of expert, and they're doing it in ways that they probably couldn't have done it on stage. There's a bit where something goes wrong in the trial and Richard Gere is sort of bullshitting his way and he's tap dancing, and it cuts to him tap dancing on stage while he's talking. And I thought that was a good example of how you open up a show or a play, because there's no way they could have done that. They could have had some other guy tap dancing and like, but you couldn't have done that on stage. Like that I thought was cinematic in a way that worked. But yeah, that he had it coming, and whatever the puppet people who love Chicago are like screaming at their fucking
I think they both reach for the gun, or they say that a lot, and I think that's the name of it.
Yeah. I don't have the song list in front of me, but I don't know if it would have helped me if I did. But yeah, I think those two numbers are where I thought the movie kind of came alive for me, and I wasn't sort of bothered. I wasn't sort of bothered by some of the other stuff that I mentioned that we will get to. I'll tell you what I think my biggest problem is, or this is just like this weird. Maybe you can help me, because again we're the same age, so maybe you can help me sort of like work through this feeling I'm having. I'm going to tell you where I'm going with this. This movie's set in the 20s. It's based on a show that was made in the 70s, and the movie obviously was made in 2002. But a couple things about this movie just struck me as really 80s. And I'm going to explain why. Not 80s in the way that you're thinking, like big hair and Dayglow and Duran Duran and all this other stuff. But there was just this feeling like, okay, so there's a scene where Roxy's on top of like a red neon sign with her name on it, or she's on top of like a red neon sign. And that to me just struck me as like an 80s version of the 20s, like something like Pennies from Heaven or Annie. And these movies don't all take place in the 20s, like 20s or 30s. And this is very ephemeral, I know, but I'm just wondering, it's something about like the red neon in that scene. It just reminded me of like, oh, when I was very little, like in the early 80s, there were a lot of movies set in this time period or 20s, 30s, around there. And it's just something about it. I don't know. Am I nuts, or did you pick up on that?
I didn't pick up on that at all. But I mean, I see what you're saying.
Something about, just not, obviously not like the clothing and these actors, obviously most of them are of this time period. Obviously most of them are, young actors for the most part from the early 2000s. But I don't know. It was just this weird thing. It's not even so much a criticism. It's just something that just struck me as just like, this just felt like, it's just the red neon and in that scene just like made me feel like I was watching an early 80s movie set in the 20s or 30s.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't even know if I had much of a point there, but
I thought Queen Latifah's performance was really good. I don't know if this is the right time to say that.
Yeah, no.
Okay. I really liked her When You're Good to Mama number. That was another good one, I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, I enjoyed the movie. I don't remember. I watched it the other night too, and at the time, I don't remember really having any criticism. I remember saying, "Oh, I like this better than the Broadway show."
Oh, that's interesting.
I do remember thinking that.
Okay.
And but I hadn't watched it in a long, long time. Yeah. So I figured, I better watch this to familiarize myself.
Yeah. It's obvious. I mean, I hadn't seen it in 22 years, so this conversation would be a lot more vague if I hadn't just seen it. I totally forgot that Lucy Liu was in this. I guess it's a cameo.
I did too.
I was like, what?
She's in this?
Yeah, I did not remember. I mean, I guess she's only in one scene, but when she showed up, I was like, shit, is Lucy Liu like the other woman in this movie? And I guess it's really just a cameo.
Yeah.
But I didn't... That was a surprise. I probably was surprised back in 2003.
Yeah.
2002, 2003. But the other thing that I really liked, one of the bits that I thought kind of worked is where Renee Zellweger pretends to be pregnant.
Yes.
And then the doctor, and the doctor knocks her up.
Yeah.
I thought that was... which kind of brings me to the thing I guess I like most about this movie, which I didn't remember, is... no one in this movie is particularly sympathetic. And And I think that that's like the only sort of edgy and modern thing about it. Like it just, because I guess I remember that the Renee Zellweger character was sort of like this ingenue and very innocent. I didn't remember sort of what a femme fatale she was. And that was a nice little surprise. I just didn't remember the mechanics of the movie. I knew that Catherine Zeta-Jones was obviously like this, like, you know, formidable woman to be reckoned with, but I did not remember. Yeah. I mean, I thought that was really interesting that like this movie had kind of a nasty edge to it. And I guess, you know, another bit that I won't say like, but another bit that I thought was really effective on that same, you know, following that same train of thought is where the, I think she's Hungarian, where the ballet dancer is hanged. That was kind of brutal. Yeah. What did you think of that?
And I was trying to remember, like, is this in the Broadway show? And I was thinking it was something that was for just the movie. But then I'm thinking, well, she was in the, he had it comin number, right? Which then I guess she was in the Broadway show. I don't remember like a hanging scene or anything. Yeah. On the show, for the show. But I was like, oh yeah, this is
well, it was interesting because what's so interesting is that like they make a big point of that Chicago hasn't hanged a woman in like 47 years or something, or like 47 women have all walked, whatever. I forgot what the stat was. And then they killed this woman. And that's sort of the shift in the story where Renee Zellweger is kind of like, oh wait, I gotta, you know, I might not get out of this. I mean, I get out of this place alive. So I thought that was a really interesting, you know, I thought that was an interesting, a really interesting moment. Like one of the few moments, not one of the few moments. I thought that moment really kind of landed for me. And again, I did not remember that. I did not remember anyone getting killed except for the guy in the beginning, which obviously I'm not supposed to feel bad about, and I don't. I thought that we talked a second ago about the tap dancing number that Richard Gere's doing. I thought that was a good idea. I thought it was I thought it was kind of literal, which I guess it was supposed to be. I wrote this down. I really liked the gag where they're waiting for the trial, where they have two sets of newspapers, one with guilty and one with not guilty. I thought that was really funny. And I'm willing to bet that actually is how they did it. Yeah. I bet they really, because they did that on election night where they would say like, you know, like this guy won and, you know, like Nixon won or Kennedy won. They would have both ready because this was before obviously social media and digital media. So like you know, you had to have the paper right then and there and start selling them right then and there. I mean, that's true all the way until like the 1990s even, you know, or even into the 2000s, which is crazy to think about. Yeah. Yeah. That was a funny bit there. Yeah. I thought that made me laugh out loud. And I'm wondering if that was something, I mean, they had to have done some things just for the movie. I thought that was a cute bit. One thing that kind of didn't work for me, I think this is, I always like it when Richard Gere plays a fucking asshole, but for some reason this asshole like was kind of bland. Maybe that's the role. Maybe he wasn't the right guy for the role, but I'm a little hard on him because I mentioned earlier one of the movies I really liked this year was Unfaithful. Have you seen that movie? I have. Yeah, and I think he's fantastic in that movie. And you know, this is only a few months later, and that movie was sort of a sleeper hit. This was a blockbuster, as we talked about at the beginning of the pod. But yeah, so usually I find Richard Gere bland when they're trying to make him a hero, like they're trying to make him like Harrison Ford or something. And I had the same exact issue with Michael Douglas. Like with a few exceptions, I don't like when Michael Douglas is the hero. I like when he's a fucking prick. And I think Richard Gere has that same thing where he's much more interesting in things like American Gigolo or Internal Affairs. You know that movie? Yeah. Internal Affairs is my favorite performance of his. I think he's just magnificent in that. And could not be a worse human being in that movie. And again, on paper, this guy does suck. This guy is just like, you know, a sleazy lawyer, but. Yeah, no, but you're right. I think there could be more snark, a little more Christian Troy from Nip Tuck, you know? Yeah. That kind of. And Gere has that. Like even, and it's not that he's too old because it isn't, I mean, the guy could be the age, I think he's only like in his early 50s. So it's not that Gere's too old for it, but yeah, like Christian Troy, like if Julian McMahon played this part, and again, even just Gere at this age at another point, something about it, it's almost like, was he, I don't know if he's a song and dance man, but I'm wondering, was he just so focused on the singing and dancing, or maybe it's just, I don't know. It just, I wasn't into this character and the way they build him up, like, there's even a song where they're saying, I won't try and sing it, but when they're all saying like, we want Billy or whatever, it's like they build him up really well.
Yeah.
And they give him this kind of grand entrance. So I don't know, maybe he's miscast. I really don't know. And again, I want to be clear. I'm a big fan of his as recently as like 7 months before this movie comes out, and in a few things after this movie. I just wasn't as into him. And I don't know if it's the performance or maybe it's the writing. Because I don't know that I'm super into any of these characters. I'm finding the whole thing kind of superficial. Doesn't mean I'm not enjoying. I think Queen Latifah sort of fares best because that character's an inch deep, but I think she's bringing so much to it.
Yeah.
But she's also a singer. This isn't the kind of thing she sings, but I think you're probably right that Queen Latifah, if this is what you're saying, kind of fares the best. She feels like the most comfortable in her skin and the most comfortable in this world. One thing, and actually this is a good thing to sort of talk to you about because you're such an expert on locations. So they shot this in Toronto. I mean, so many movies were shot in Toronto, particularly in the late 90s and early 2000s. Someone had called it like Hollywood North or whatever. Obviously that's done for budget considerations, but I would have liked at least a little of Chicago itself. Like I would have liked, my family is from Chicago. I don't know the city super well, but I feel like if this movie were set in Manhattan, well, like West Side Story, we'll talk, the Spielberg West Side Story and the original West Side Story, they shot a lot of that in the streets of Manhattan, and it really adds a lot to it.
Yes.
And I understand, being a filmmaker myself, you don't need to shoot the entire movie in Chicago. If you're in a courtroom, you're in a jail cell,
right,
that's all fine. But if like one or two of these numbers and a few scenes had been on the streets of Chicago and they'd married it to the city, because like just to shoot fish in a barrel, like The Untouchables, the movie that takes place in Chicago, it's almost the same time period. That's 1930. I don't know what year this is. I know it's the 20s, so pretty close. And that movie's entirely shot on location. And obviously they brought in old cars, and I don't know how much they had to dress the buildings because a lot of old architecture in that city to this day. But I mean, what do you think? As somebody who
I'm totally with you on that. I'm from New York City, and when I see a movie that's supposed to take place in New York City and it's Vancouver, or Hollywood just thinks New York City has all these alleyways all the time, and they don't.
Can you explain this to me? I heard someone. Somebody else said that once. Does New York not have alleyways? Because I heard someone else say that about another.
Not on every block like you think it is in the movies. Like in American Psycho, when Patrick Bateman kills the homeless guy in the alley, like that's one alley I know of way downtown. But they make it seem like those alleys are everywhere. And
so New York doesn't have a lot of alleys?
Not the way that I see them in movies all the time. And it's not like you walk down a block and there's like kind of this foreboding alley.
Okay.
At least not that I've seen. Maybe on like the Lower East Side, but that always cracks me up. I saw the last Scream movie, which takes place in New York City, and literally within 2 minutes they're showing this alleyway that would never be the way they had it set up, and I just rolled my eyes. And so yeah, I'm totally with you on that. Like, at least shoot a couple of things just to get the authentic feel, and then go cheat whatever you else have to. But yeah, it
just made it feel cheaper. And I know the movie, it made the movie feel. And again, this isn't the only movie that's sort of guilty of it, but the movie's fucking called Chicago. Yeah. And, I wasn't even looking into this. I went on IMDb and I just happened to see the locations, and it just said Toronto, Toronto, Toronto. I don't think they popped a single shot in Chicago.
No.
And that's like, and if you're not going to shoot in the city, then you need to do something really visually creative. Like, another thing I kept thinking about watching this movie, which I think is a superior example, is Dick Tracy, the Warren Beatty Dick Tracy. Dick Tracy's not set in unless I'm misremembering, is not set in New York or anything. They never say. I think it's just the city, but they create such a visually rich and sort of cohesive city. Same thing with Tim Burton's Batman. All the Gotham cities, for the most part, even if they're using Chicago with Gotham City in the first two Christopher Nolan movies. So it's just kind of inexcusable, given that this movie had probably a pretty healthy budget, considering they had to pay a lot for the show, and they knew this was going to be the hope that this would be a big Oscar movie. Obviously, that hope came true because here we are talking about it. But that's just something that just really bugged me. So yeah, I'm glad I wanted to throw that to you, because
right there with you.
Yeah, and it's just unnecessary because I think the production design of this movie is fine, but if I were the production designer of this, I would be like, wait, we're not going to Chicago?
Even Adventures in Babysitting got 3 or 4 shots in Chicago and then filmed the rest in Toronto.
Anything else you want to talk about that you noticed, that you liked, didn't like? I mean, it can be random.
Yeah, I remember there were intercutting things. I just didn't realize until I watched it the other night that it happens just so frequently that it becomes a little almost like, this is hard to watch. It's like Cloverfield. So that I found a little jarring. And I don't know how well dancers, Catherine Zeta-Jones and Renee, I don't know if it was to like kind of hide that a little bit.
It seemed like but I don't know. It's interesting that you bring that up, because it seemed like they were dancing because they're pretty wide for a lot of it.
Yeah, especially the last number they do together.
They're totally wide, so it's them.
Oh, well, maybe it's not. But then I was like, I don't know. I thought in the opening number that Catherine Zeta-Jones does, she's a little rough. And it's like, well, maybe. But then she's good in the Cell Block Tango. Oh, is that the name of it? Is it
Cell Block Tango?
He had it coming.
Oh, maybe. It's probably not called He Had It Coming.
That might be the official name. I can't remember.
I really don't know. I could look it up, but that's not going to be interesting for anybody else.
She was a little better in that one. And I don't know, that kind of crossed my mind. I'm like, oh, maybe they're trying to hide a little bit.
Well, I think there's some rumblings that like Bebe Neuwirth, who was a Broadway actress, I mean, we know her as Lilith from Cheers, but I think her background was on stage. And, when they made the movie, I don't even think she was in the mix to be Velma. They wanted a bigger name, which always happens. Yeah. That goes back to My Fair Lady. Julie Andrews does that on stage. They want Audrey Hepburn, who can't even sing. They have to loop her. And then Julie Andrews does Mary Poppins at the exact same year, and she wants an Oscar for her first movie, So, and a year later, you put Julie Andrews in My Fair Lady, it's a big hit. So they put her in Sound of Music. That's a bigger hit than fucking anything. So that's just an old practice. Like it's very rare for the person, and Bebe Neuwirth is obviously not the originator, because the play's almost 30 years old at that point. I know that it came out in the 70s, but that's just an old thing where you want to get movie stars who can sing and dance. You teach them to sing and dance. I mean, I thought that Catherine Zeta-Jones or Renee Zellweger acquitted themselves pretty well as far as the singing and the dancing. I thought Queen Latifah, as far as singing, obviously she is a singer. I thought she sort of was the best in terms of like, oh, you could do this on stage. I could see her doing it on stage and on, and on the screen and that being sort of not having to make too many adjustments. So
I'd say one thing that with period pieces is a lot of times it takes me out of the movie with like props or something. It's like the people are like, want to show you that we did our homework and this is how we opened a Coke can in the 70s, and that always takes me out of it. And for Chicago, set in the 20s, there really wasn't anything that I was like, oh yeah, this is a period piece that kind of would take me out of it.
So they avoided that, is what you're saying?
Yeah. For me, I can't but watching like, Stranger Things or something, and it's always like, hey, this is, remember, this is in the 80s because we're doing this right now.
Right.
And I didn't, that's one thing I kind of appreciated with this, is that I didn't, besides, maybe like, the hairstyle and stuff, but it wasn't in your face. Overall, I really enjoyed the movie. Thought the performances were great. Musical numbers, which I don't normally appreciate, I thought were really good. And choreographed, and so I understand why it won Best Picture.
So yeah, let's get to that. Why do you think it won Best Picture? Do you think it was merit? Do you think it was politics? Do you think it was some kind of makeup award? Is it just Harvey Weinstein? Love him or hate him, but he was incredibly great at campaigning.
Yeah, he is. I think it was definitely that. I think, I don't know, maybe Hollywood wanted a musical to win because it had been so long.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
And merit as well. So I think a kind of combination of those.
Yeah, it's interesting. So let's move on. Categorically denied. Before we get to Best Picture, let's see if Chicago is worthy of the other 5 Oscars it won. So we'll go through these other ones. This is one we've kind of touched on, but let's do it officially. So Best Supporting Actress. So Catherine Zeta-Jones was against Kathy Bates for About Schmidt, Julianne Moore for The Hours, Queen Latifah for Chicago, and Meryl Streep for Adaptation. So I don't expect you've seen all these movies. I've seen all but one, but of those nominees, did you think against those nominees, did you think Catherine Zeta-Jones deserved to win?
So I hadn't seen any of those other movies.
That's fine.
I thought she deserved to win based on the performance I saw.
I actually think that she deserved to win an Academy Award that she wasn't even nominated for 2 years earlier for Traffic. She's got one scene, I won't spoil it for you, that if you saw it, you're like, yes, she should have won an Oscar for that. I know Marcia Gay Harden won for Pollock that year. I don't know who she was up against. A few names come to mind, but I think that I like Catherine Zeta-Jones in this movie. Mm-hmm. I think she's fine. I think she sings and dances as well. She obviously looks great. I liked her in a lot of stuff, so I'm not outraged by this, but I thought Queen Latifah was also really strong in this.
She was really strong. I would have been happy too if she had won.
Yeah, this kind of disproves something that I talked about, I think 2 episodes ago. There's this thing that comes up that I just think is bullshit. When 2 people are nominated for the same movie, people always say like, oh, well, they split the votes. And I just don't think that happens. Like, because this is evidence that this didn't happen. And it also, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis won for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and she was against, I can't remember the other woman's name, someone else from that movie. I feel like people, if they're going to like someone better, and I feel like that person is going to win, I just don't think this vote splitting thing has ever happened. There's no way to know. I mean, William Goldman, the famous screenwriter, had always said, release the results, like all the voting results. I think Hollywood would burn, but it would be so fascinating though.
Yeah, it would.
I mean, if you found out you won by 1 or that you lost by like 100,000, not 100,000, but like if you found out you lost by a ton.
And what would Marissa Tomei find out?
Yeah, but I think, I don't think I think Marissa Tomei, that's another thing that got debunked. There was this thing, you brought it up. So Marissa Tomei, when she won Best Supporting Actress for My Cousin Vinny, a lot of people thought that it was a mistake, but now we know that's not what happened because the La La Land Moonlight year, if there's a mistake made, a guy comes right out. Yeah. So I thought of it that night. I was like, well, Marissa Tomei should be like, fuck you. Like, clearly if I wasn't supposed to win, I wouldn't have the award. But you're not a fan of Marissa Tomei? Or?
No. I remember that controversy and rumors and everything. I thought she was great in My Cousin Vinny.
Me too.
Normally comedic roles don't win. I mean, so good on her for. I don't remember who she was against.
She was up against, I don't remember all 5 nominees, but the person, because that was really the first year, or maybe the second or third year where I was really following, like really starting to like read up on the Oscars. And like, she was against a lot of really accomplished British actresses, but there's a woman named Judy Davis who was in the Woody Allen movie Husbands and Wives, and she is fantastic. I don't know that I'd say she's better than Marissa Tomei, but I'd say it's a comedic performance, but maybe a little darker because that movie is sort of a comedy, but has a really dark edge to it. And I think, I don't remember, I'd have to look up. I don't know if she'd won a lot of early awards, but I think that there was some talk that she could win. But I do remember Marissa Tomei was a huge upset, but a fun one.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's something we kind of talked about already. So art direction, it was up against Frida, Gangs of New York, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and Road to Perdition. Have you seen any of these? Do you have any strong feelings about?
I saw Gangs in New York. Don't really remember much about it.
That's fine. It's interesting. I think I'm not a huge fan of Gangs of New York or Road to Perdition, but I think both those movies do a better job than Chicago of taking you to another place with the locations. Like Road to Perdition actually takes place in Chicago, and they actually shot it there, and they actually built stuff there. So if we're going to go apples to apples, I would give Road to Perdition this Academy Award. But Gangs of New York, a movie I'm really not that fond of, they built, 19th century New York. They built it in Italy, but obviously they couldn't shoot that on the streets of New York, but they definitely create a world. That's probably the strongest thing about that. So I would say that's at least two things that I would give art direction over Chicago, which again doesn't look bad, but it's kind of claustrophobic and this is nothing special.
Yeah.
So for costume design, it is up against almost the same movies. It's up against Frida, Gangs of New York, The Hours, and The Pianist. I think the costumes are pretty strong in this. I'm fine with it. I mean, costumes are. This is one of those throw a dart ones where if any of these won, I'd be like, okay. Yeah. Costume design, I feel like is sort of a meritocracy anyway. Sometimes if a movie's winning, like this movie won Best Picture, and won the most awards of the night. So a lot of times it gets swept up in that sweep, but I'm fine with that. We talked a lot about editing. It's fellow nominees were Gangs of New York, The Hours, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and The Pianist.
It was a little over the top for me, but I think they deserve.
Yeah, I'm of two minds about it because we talked about the cross-cutting being a little overbearing, but I was very happy that this movie was less than 2 hours. Like once they got to the final number, I'm like, oh, this is over. Yeah. Like it didn't drag.
No, it didn't.
You certainly can't say it dragged.
No.
So I think that, and maybe that's a low bar, but.
They even cut one number from the movie.
What's that?
They cut one number. I think Queen Latifah and Catherine Zeta-Jones do a number together.
Oh, really?
That was not in the movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I guess they were being mindful of pacing. So. Which
is interesting. Yeah. And then this one, I really don't, so sound, it's up against Gangs, Lord of the Rings, Road to Perdition, and Spider-Man. Any strong feelings?
No.
Yeah. Sound's a tough one because unless it's something like Jurassic Park or The Matrix, or Saving Private Ryan, just to, those are all three things that won sound. I know those three things won sound. It's, this was fine. Yeah. I don't have a problem with that. So, Brian, let's see if this movie had it coming. Now it's time to test our hindsight with the verdict. Against Gangs of New York, The Hours, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and The Pianist, was Chicago the best movie nominated this year?
Yes. I just saw Gangs of New York, Lord of the Rings. I never read the books, never seen the movies.
Right.
The Pianist, I did not see.
That's fine.
What was the other one? Frida?
The Hours.
The Hours. Didn't see that one either.
I would say I haven't seen The Hours, but I've seen all these other ones. And I think The Pianist of these five, I did not see it until after the Academy Awards. And because that was a sort of a crazy night where, Adrian Brody won Best Actor. And that was a huge upset. Yeah. Like one of the hugest upsets maybe ever. And Roman Polanski wins Best Director. He had not won the DGA. He had not won the Golden Globe. It was one of the few times where DGA and the Oscars split, which I mentioned in our first episode because it happened that year too. And then it won Adapted Screenplay, which might have happened anyway. So yeah, The Pianist is something I saw after, and it's definitely a tough hang, but I think it's definitely a very brutal movie about the Holocaust, but I thought it was, the best thing I'd seen about the Holocaust since Schindler's List. I think Schindler's List is far superior, but this is it's a different thing. It's not based on Polanski's story, but Polanski himself was a survivor. And I think he brought a lot of that to it. And it's a much, it's a much colder movie than Schindler's List, which is kind of funny to say, because I think Schindler's List is admirably not a sentimental movie, at least not till the very end. But The Pianist had, a very big night. And like we said, this movie, Chicago, is the last movie to win Best Picture without winning any awards for directing or writing. Has not happened since. And I don't know if we're ever going to see that again. Just statistically, that seems crazy to me. So now let's appeal. Brian, was Chicago the best movie of the year, period?
No. Far From Heaven was. I love a good suburbia gone awry movie. American Beauty is one of my favorites. The Ice Storm, Pleasantville, and Far From Heaven. I thought overall, between the acting, the cinematography, the story, I thought I think it only got 4 nominations and didn't win any. That was a big upset to me. I thought it should have won Best Picture. I thought Julianne Moore should have won for Best Actress, Best Score, cinematography. That's what I was rooting for that year.
So great movie, really great choice. It was nominated for, what was this? So actress, score, cinematography.
Score, cinematography, and screenplay, original screenplay, I think, with 4.
Yeah. Interesting thing. Yeah, I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but I thought this is the kind of thing that I really love because it's definitely a throwback to, I didn't even know who Douglas Sirk was. Have you seen any Douglas Sirk movies?
No.
So Douglas Sirk is you probably would get a huge kick out of Douglas Sirk because he made movies in the 50s and they always had plots just like this. So I would highly recommend you get on some Douglas Sirk movies. And he was, I think Quentin Tarantino compared Douglas Sirk to Tony Scott, somebody who was like really commercially successful, but was looked down on critically until after they're gone. Not literally. I mean, people don't die, the Douglas Sirk movies don't have like violence and stuff in them, but I thought that was an interesting comparison that he made. Yeah. I thought that this movie, I remember when I saw it, it's interesting because before the Academy Awards, people were talking about this as being something that was going to be a huge player. And it's great that it got the nominations that it did.
Yeah.
And I think that, Julianne Moore, she's nominated for Best Actor. Julianne Moore's nominated for Best Actress and Supporting Actress.
And then you wonder, did some people not vote for Rebecca Actress because they thought she'd been Best
That's where vote splitting might be a factor because that's happened so many times. And it just randomly off the top of my head, like Jamie Foxx is nominated in 2 categories, Sigourney Weaver in 88, Jessica Lange in 82, but Jessica Lange wins one, Al Pacino in 92, but he wins one. Emma Thompson and Holly Hunter, both the same year, are both nominated for actress and supporting actress, but Holly Hunter wins one. That is a situation where I do wonder if a vote does split. Like if you're not voting for Julianne Moore because you think she's going to win the other one. I don't know. And
then I can't remember, was that the same situation with the Golden Globes?
The Golden Globes is a whole other thing. And she probably got nominated. I mean, she was definitely was hot shit that year. Yeah. And I love Julianne Moore. I don't say that with any derision. I still love Julianne Moore. But I definitely think, who wins Best Actress? I can't remember. Shit.
It was Nicole Kidman for The Hours.
Sorry. Nicole Kidman wins for The Hours. Yeah, so with another thing that's really interesting about Far From Heaven, Elmer Bernstein, this is pretty close to the last score that he did, but Elmer Bernstein, he won one Academy Award, but he was nominated in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. Wow. He was nominated, and I think John Williams might have done the same thing now, like all these years later. I think John Williams might have been nominated in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s. That's the same amount, just like, obviously John Williams is younger. Yeah. But I remember when that happened, that was like a really big deal. But it's a good movie and it's a really good choice.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen like a Titanic number of nominations for it, but got the 4, and so that was my pick for that. That was what I was rooting for that year.
I think what's funny. I think now, Far From Heaven, if it were to come out right now, the same movie would have a much stronger shot. Not just because there's more Best Picture slots, and the more Best Picture slots. If you nominate movies like that, then I'm kind of all for it. And we've seen there's some evidence of that. Like, I mean, we're not talking so much about that because, you and I are dealing with 5 Best Picture slots because we're in 2002. But obviously, when we get past from 2009 to the present, that conversation can come up a lot more. But I think, and I mentioned this before, is that the Academy now is getting younger and more international. And I think Todd Haynes, who made a movie just, I guess it's 2 years ago now, called May December. Have you seen it with Julianne Moore? Have you seen that movie? Really interesting movie. He did a lot of movies with her. Far From Heaven's not even their first. They made a movie called Safe, and there might be another one, but they made a movie called May December. It's Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman, and it's a really interesting movie. It only got a screenplay nomination, but again, that was looked at as something that like that was going to get a ton of nominations. But in the movie, Julianne Moore plays kind of like a Mary Kay Letourneau character. So this woman who had sex with a boy when he was like 12 or 13, and it's like 20 years later, and now they're married. So she's like 30 years older than her husband, and they have a bunch of kids. And it's a really interesting movie, and it's, again, Todd Haynes, tonally very different. Have you seen the movie Carol? That's a lot more like Far From Heaven with Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara.
No, I have not seen.
That's also set in the 50s and is kind of like melodramatic. It's not quite as lush, but that's an interesting movie that did get, I think Blanchett and Rooney Mara were nominated. So, Todd Haynes, has kind of done more mainstream things, but has never gone mainstream. And I think it's an interesting director who's sort of like still around. I think he did that Mildred Pierce miniseries with Kate Winslet years ago.
I was an extra in that.
Oh, well. Well, did you see him on the set? Did you have any idea you were on the set with the Far From Heaven guy?
No.
Well, you could have talked to him.
Well, we were talking about locations. So Far From Heaven takes place in Hartford, Connecticut, but they actually filmed it in New Jersey and New York, a couple of places right from where I grew up. But it could easily be Connecticut.
It's a suburbia. That's fine.
So in that case, it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, they're not. The movie's not called like Far From Heaven in Chicago. It's fine. I'm only giving Chicago a hard time about that because the movie's fucking called Chicago. So a movie that does use this location well is my pick for the best movie of 2002, and that is Spike Lee's 25th Hour. This was the quickest but most powerful rendering of 9/11 in a movie. It's only a year later, and 9/11 is not even what this movie is about. So this movie pulls off the trick of being poignant and exhilarating at the same time, and it's as inventive in its last 20 minutes as it is in the first half, and that's a really small bullseye. I think that Spike Lee, in a way, moves out of his comfort zone because he's dealing with a pretty much an all-white cast. I think in this movie, he's kind of coming for Woody Allen and Sidney Lumet's crown as New York's greatest cinematic poet. Have you ever seen this movie?
I have not, no.
Yeah. 25th Hour, I think its reputation has grown. It got 0 Oscar nominations, but it's interesting. The guy who wrote the movie and the book is David Benioff, who went on to co-create Game of Thrones, the show. And it's really one of Edward Norton's best performances. It's a great Philip Seymour Hoffman performance. Barry Pepper, Anna Paquin, Brian Cox, probably like the nicest guy Brian Cox has ever played in a movie, but not, he's not just Logan Roy or Hannibal Lecter. People don't know he's the very first Hannibal Lecter in a movie. You see Ground Zero, and it's sort of weaved through, but that's not what the movie's about. But it's just so tastefully done. And I think if it was anybody other than either Spike Lee or Woody Allen or Sidney Lumet, somebody who like lives in New York and who 95% of the movies take place in New York, it's just a staggering movie. And 0 Oscar nominations. And I would have nominated this obviously for picture, director, actor, supporting actor, cinematography, score, on and on and on and on. I really felt like it should have been in the mix. But yeah, again, I wonder with 10 nominees, would this get in the mix? And if you're going to do 10 nominees and movies like Far From Heaven and 25th Hour would get in there, then I'm all for it. So Brian, what in 2002 do you want to spotlight?
I think I want to go with Dennis Quaid. I think his performance in Far From Heaven was really heart-wrenching, and I think he deserved definitely a nomination. I wouldn't have. Oh wait, Chris Cooper won Best Actor.
Chris Cooper won Supporting Actor.
See, I would not be mad at that because I think he should have won for American Beauty. So
right,
but I think Dennis Quaid deserved definitely a nomination. I thought he was really good in the role.
Yeah,
and Julianne Moore was fantastic. I think when you think of that movie, you just kind of go to her.
Right,
but yeah, I'd like to give Dennis Quaid a shout out.
Yeah, Dennis Quaid, is an actor we grew up with. Jaws 3, Enter Space. He's in a really great movie do you know the movie Enemy Mine?
No.
So it's this movie. I won't turn this into the Enemy Mine podcast, but it's an interesting movie that he did with Lou Gossett Jr. It was directed by Wolfgang Peterson, who did Never Ending Story, In the Line of Fire, Outbreak, Air Force One, Perfect Storm, all these movies. And it's an interesting movie with Dennis Quaid where it's kind of like Castaway meets The Defiant Ones. He's this like, it's set in the future. He's like this space astronaut. He lands on this planet, and Louis Gossett Jr. is an alien that he hates. Like a kind of a species of alien that he hates, and they're stuck on this, this planet together, and they like have to learn to live together. And it's just really, it sounds corny, but it's like, it's a better movie about racism than a lot of movies about racism. Uh-huh. And Dennis Quaid's always somebody that I really liked. And yeah, Far From Heaven, was kind of like the first kind of like really meaty, dramatic thing he'd been given to do. Yeah. And, yeah, I thought I think there was definitely room for him for Best Supporting Actor. Mm-hmm. Just Chris Cooper was magnificent. Yeah. But I definitely think he could have been in that mix. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
He was originally supposed to be in Halloween too.
He was? Dennis Quaid?
Yeah, because he was, I don't know if he was married or he was dating PJ Soul.
Right.
And they wanted him to play the boyfriend, but he was shooting something, so he couldn't do it. Yeah. But that would have been another good solid thing on his IMDb.
Yeah. Well, he's still around though.
He is.
So my spotlight is a bit of a paradox. What happens when the worst James Bond movie has the best opening title sequence? So the opening title sequence for Die Another Day, which was designed by Daniel Kleinman, who'd been doing them since GoldenEye, is the first Bond movie to tell a story in its opening titles, but it still ties it to the tropes of Bond. It still has like naked women dancing. It also, in my opinion, elevates the reviled Madonna song, while other sequences like Live and Let Die diminish the incredible song that they were given. And I'll kind of segue into a rant about an Oscar category that I think we should have. In 2002 is when I first had this thought. I think we need to have an Oscar category for Best Opening Title Sequence. Now, here are the opening title sequences in 2002 that we had. We had Panic Room, which has incredible opening titles. Fantastic. Yeah. So I think Panic Room, Die Another Day, which I just mentioned, 25th Hour, which has this incredible opening title sequence, shot at Ground Zero. They were shooting the spotlights they would put up every night to sort of take place in the towers that had fallen. Catch Me If You Can, which is an incredible opening title sequence, kind of like this Pink Panther-y Saul Bass thing. Those were all this year. And there are other years too. I'm a huge James Bond guy, but I also think anything Fincher. We're going to have a Best Stunts Oscar category. And I think next year we have a casting category. And I think we deserve both those things. Absolutely. But I think if we're going to do those, which we should, let's get serious. I think a Best Opening Title Sequence would be a really cool. And I think you'd get movies that aren't, look, I'm saying the very worst James Bond movie had the very best opening title sequence. And I think that should have been nominated for an Academy Award. So it's just funny how in this year, again, we had all these great title sequences in one 12-month period. And of course, there are other ones throughout time, but this would have been a cool thing to have. Yeah, and I think having more categories would be a good thing. And I think they should all be in the show. We don't talk a lot about the show on this pod. That's not what this pod is about, but
I always thought the Emmy should have like best theme song, best opening credits.
They don't?
Well, they might now, but back in the day they didn't.
Oh, interesting. Best theme song. They didn't have that like in the 80s?
Not that I remember, no.
Oh, wow. That's a weird one not to have.
Yeah. Not that I recall.
Huh. Well, I completely agree, and that's to my point.
Yeah.
So, Brian Koppel, where can people find you?
So I am a big filming location enthusiast, and coming up on 10 years now, I started a blog called Reel to Reel Filming Locations, REEL to REAL. So you can find me at reeltoreellocations.com. Also on Instagram, same handle. So if you want to see some of your favorite filming locations, how they looked in the movie, TV show, music video, and how they look now, do comparison shots, mostly from the 70s, 80s, 90s, shows we grew up watching. You can find me there.
Yeah, it's a really cool site. I spent a lot of time on it, and Brian gets to these places that are really unbelievable. I mean, it's interesting, even if the location doesn't exist anymore, he'll still find out.
Sometimes you can make out, the mountains or some other building that they could still, you can see that it was there. But, I'm in a race against time because they're rebuilding everything around, especially LA.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find things in their original state.
Yeah, I imagine it is. And location filming is such a cool thing. And it's serendipitous that you're on this episode where we're talking about a movie that I feel would have benefited from more location filming. Because Beautiful Mind does that well, and Gladiator, obviously they're recreating Rome, but it's still very tactile, and so I think it's interesting that I'm glad I had you to talk to about that, and you also solved this alleyway thing for me. Next episode, David Sipkin and I discuss the best picture of 2003, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Till then, looking forward to looking back.